Welcome once again. It is another episode here of Beav's World with Jay, of course, Beav himself. It is, Wednesday evening here, 6 o'clock on the East Coast. Of course, 5 o'clock on the Central and 3 o'clock up there on the left coast. Thank you all for tuning in. Once again, you can call or text the show at 727-858-6650, 727-858-6650. And the first comment already coming in.
Get nothing. You lose. Good day, sir.
Yes, I'm saying it because of the Phillies. The Mets fan himself is here. And unfortunately, that's exactly what the Phillies got. It was absolutely nothing. And I mentioned, Beef, before at the All-Star break, that if the Phillies would go on this roller coaster ride, that they would just eliminate themselves from the playoffs. And that's exactly what they did going into the end of the season. And it's exactly what they did going into the Mets. Mets being a hot team right now. And listen, my hat's off to the Mets. I mean, the Mets fans have been waiting a seriously long time to be able to at least hoist up another World Series trophy. I think it's going to happen. I also believe they're going to beat the Dodgers, just in my own humble opinion. But more importantly, will we see a Subway Series? So welcome, Jay, back here to the show once again. Do appreciate you as always. And I always dig the blue from the Detroit Lions because that is absolutely fantastic.
Well, let's go over everything first. The Phillies, I think you kind of explained it. They started off red hot, had some injuries, and never really got back. A couple of their pitchers got hurt. And I think they were one of the teams I think that was hurt by the layoff. And my team has been the best team in baseball since June 1st. And they had to fight their way through to the playoffs because of what the Braves did. By the way, how are the Braves doing? They're on the second week, actually the third week of the golf course. I enjoy that. But it worked out good for us. The Mets, with their new ownership, like your team, are always going to contend because your team. You have Dave Dombrowski. We have David Stearns. If people don't know who David Stearns is, he built the Milwaukee Brewers. Now he's building this team with Steve Cohen's money. As far as this series, I think the team that wins the game tonight is going to win the series. I think the way the pitching is lined up, because the Dodgers have a lot of pitchers injured, that's part of where we are. I mean, Clayton Kershaw and a couple of other guys, they're young, the Stone kids out for the year. Walker Buehler is pitching tonight. The Mets destroy him. Look at Alonso's numbers against him. And he doesn't pitch well on the road. And, when your team is not in a good position when your second game of a series where you've had time to prepare is a bullpen game. And I know what the Mets did in game one. There's strategy behind what the Mets are doing. There's a difference with what the Dodgers are doing. The Dodgers are doing this out of necessity. And you're seeing it with Cleveland in this series with the Yankees. The Tigers lost to them, but took a lot out of their team and their pitching.
Mm-hmm.
They don't have a lot of pitchers to begin with. They're the Cleveland Indians. They don't spend money. So they're in a position where they're going against the Yankees. They've got all these big, powerful hitters. When you make a mistake against the Yankees, they hit home runs. And the Indians aren't really a big power team. The AL is very strange. Most of the better teams that were left, the Astros lost early to the Tigers. The Orioles lost early too. Those teams had power. Then you had teams like Kansas City and the Tigers are more speed, run around, hit the ball. Cleveland, the same thing, like how the Milwaukee Brewers are. So I think you're seeing this. You know this because you watch a lot of baseball. October baseball is about power. That's why the Yankees usually win. They have left-handed power. They strike guys out. They have Mariano Rivera. So, Roger Maris, Mickey Mantle, Babe Ruth, Lou Gehrig. That's why you win. It's harder to get 3 hits in a row to score runs in the playoffs because the other team's pitchers are good. You're facing Bob Gibson, Tom Seaver, Whitey Ford, Randy Johnson, Kurt Schilling, Pedro Martinez, Roger Clemens, Justin Verlander, Bob Gibson. So, there's better pitchers, Madison Bumgarner. So you're always facing better pitchers, so it's harder to get hits. So that's why. I mean, look how many big home runs the Mets have hit in the playoffs. And obviously the Yankees are starting to heat up. As far as the Yankees in the Subway Series, we'll deal with that when we get to that. I don't really want to talk about that because there's very few things on the planet Earth I hate more than the New York Yankees. going to deal with that when we get to that. But they're in a good position. But again, I always maintain a series doesn't start until the home team loses a game. That hasn't happened yet. The Dodgers had that happen.
Yep, they have. Although I was kind of in, I don't want to say intrigued, but earlier on we had Chef Derek Fox on with Pete this morning
Yep.
from 7 to 10, and then I apparently because I'm not a Dodgers fan, don't care for LA. Sorry
No.
to anybody who lives out there. That, not nothing personal against you guys.
It's a terrible sports town. It's a Lakers town. It's not a sports town. It's a Lakers town.
That's exactly what it is. But he was saying about like the whole thing when you buy the VIP experience or VIP ticket, this restaurant that's down there at the end before I guess you go outside or when you come from behind home
Yep.
plate or whatever. So
Yep.
listen, and maybe that's what people are going for. I don't know. All I know is I can't stand the Dodgers either. Phillies have had their number, and if the Phillies were able to beat the Mets, I think they also would have been able to beat the Dodgers as well. But it was, that's neither here nor there because now the season's over. But I do believe you are correct. Whoever wins tonight does win the series. And that being the case, it would be it's been, am I correct in saying at least the last 10 seasons, we have not seen the Mets in the World Series, if not just a little bit longer. It seemed like it was just not too long ago.
No, we were in more recent than the Yankees. The Yankees went in 09. We went in 15. Lost to the Royals. Lost to the Royals.
All right. So I'm close.
In a series that somehow the Mets lost in 5 games, but they led in every game in the 7th inning.
Well, it's the same way. Like I was telling my wife,
if any of you are wondering why I'm bald, there's a really good example of why I'm bald. So that story, when the Mets lost that World Series, the 5th game in Citi Field, I'm not kidding you when I tell you people this. I didn't sleep for 8 days.
Good Lord!
I stared at the ceiling. I stayed up till 4:30 in the morning watching the Mets post-game show on SNY with Keith Hernandez and the broadcasters because the game went late. They lost in extra innings. This was the David Wright, Lucas Duda error play because David Wright had to go try to play shortstop because fucking Chase Utley broke our shortstop's leg and MLB did nothing about it. Ruben Tejada. So we had to play the playoffs without our shortstop because Chase fucking Utley broke his leg, and I can say that on this show. And every time that he came up against the Mets the rest of their lives, they threw at him and hit him. Well, the Syndergaard, the Terry Collins thing, if everybody's seen that's pretty damn funny. Yeah. But when Syndergaard tried to throw at him and they threw Syndergaard out, then Terry Collins went nuts. And it was all on MLB.com. But no, this is the thing. If you are a Mets fan, and there's many of us, Hank Azaria is the most probably famous one from The Simpsons, you understand you're fighting the propaganda police known as the New York Yankees and the New York media. The reason why the Mets exist, by the way, is the New York Yankees forced the Giants and the Dodgers to leave. They used political power to drive them out of the city, and they both went to California for better deals. And the Mets were brought in to replace those 2 teams. And people who don't know this, who never lived and been around the New York City area, they're more National League fans in New York proper than American League fans.
Yep, sure.
And I'm not just saying this because I'm a Mets fan, by the way. Here's one thing about me. When I'm on here, I'm always going to tell you the truth. And if I can't tell you the truth, I'll tell you that I can't tell you the truth. But here's the scenario. The Yankees, this group of players that they have won nothing.
Yep.
Nothing. Not a one. Actually, Severino on our team has won more than that group of players. We have other guys on our team who have been part of winning teams. Winker's another one. There's Stanek, the reliever who came in and pitched the other night. Stanek, excuse me, with the goofy beard and mustache. We've had guys on our team have success. Brandon Nimmo was 6 months away from being on the 2015 team. Sean Manaea's pitched in all kinds of big games and other things, but there's very few guys. Well, now Juan Soto was the MVP of the World Series. People don't really remember that when he was on the Nationals. But that group of Yankees, none of them have done anything. And those lunatic Yankees fans are picking on Aaron Judge. Hey, let me let you guys on a secret. If you guys don't want Aaron Judge, we'll take him over in Queens, and so are every other team in baseball. This isn't A-Rod. The only reason why you're even in the playoffs is Aaron Judge. Okay, and they need to realize that. You want to yell at somebody, look at Garrett Cole, where every big game he pitches in, he pisses his pants.
Mm-hmm.
And by the way, guess which team he has the worst statistics against in his career? The team in Queens.
Yep. So true. It's so true. Which I'm pretty sure if the Yankees, which I think, I don't think the Cleveland Indians pass the division round, or the NLCS for that matter, or ALCS.
Well,
Goodness gracious.
again, this is the reality of the Detroit Tigers really shouldn't have been a playoff team. And the way they operated and ran their trade deadline, I mean, sure, they won like 30 of their last 45, but the Twins lost like 35 of their last 45. That's why the Tigers made the playoffs. And listen, I have friends all around the Tigers who work for the team and are fans of the team. I'm just stating reality, okay? And this isn't, they get compared to the 73 Mets.
Right.
The 73 Mets were part of the 4-team playoff, okay? There were 2 teams in each league. The Mets beat one of the greatest teams in the history of baseball in the playoffs that year, the Reds, the Cincinnati Reds, Big Red Machine. Big fight in the series, Pete Rose and Buddy Harrelson at second base. The other thing about the 73 Mets, they have arguably the greatest center fielder and the greatest right-handed pitcher of all time on their team. That'd be Willie Mays and Tom Seaver. And Willie Mays was at the end of his career, and Tom Seaver was in his prime. We also had guys like Tub McGraw, Rusty Staub, Cleon Jones, Wayne Garrett. We had a lot of good players in that team. That's why they went 7 games with the Oakland A's team that has about 10 Hall of Famers on it, including Reggie Jackson, Vita Blue, Catfish Hunter, and a whole bunch of other guys. Rolly Fingers and a whole bunch of other guys.
Yeah. No, good
I
point.
was about a year and a half old when that happened. I watched every game. Angel, I'm kidding.
Speaking of for Detroit, obviously, come next season, what would Detroit really have to do, not only to get back to the playoffs, but to be able to get to the World Series?
Okay, I can answer that for you real quick.
Mm-hmm.
They have 3 major holes. Now, assume they keep everything what they have. Their team is also all young kids and controllable players. There's very few decisions they have to. I'm going to give you 4 things. The very first thing they have to do, and this is when they started to play well, is remove Javi Baez. Out of the building, house arrest, thrown in the Detroit River. I don't care what it is. Get him out. Gone, gone, gone. Write the check. Go away. Bye. Angel, if you played shortstop for the Tigers last year, they would have had a better team instead of him. Look at the numbers. The minute he sat down, they started winning. He's the highest paid player on the team, and he's unplayable. He's basically baseball's version of Deshaun Watson. That's what he is. He cannot play. So you get rid of him. And by the way, one of the kids they got in the Jack Flaherty trade ended up being their shortstop, and he's just a guy. I forget the kid, Sweeney. I think Sweeney's his name, I believe. The kid who was playing shortstop. Jack Sweeney, I believe. Now, he was a first-round draft pick of the Yankees, and he was on the Dodgers, but he was a throw-in the trade. Basically, his real name is I'm not Javi Baez. Okay, so that's your first thing. They need 2 bats and a top 3 starting pitcher. Let me do these 3 things in order. You need a third baseman. Give Alex Bregman whatever he wants. You take him from the Astros. You put him on your team. He's a right-handed hitter. You're a very left-handed hitting team. Then you go get yourself a good mid-level starting pitcher. I don't know, say Jack Flaherty, who loved playing for the Tigers and has a great relationship with Chris Fetter, your pitching coach. Good friend of mine, by the way. So there you go, Jack Flaherty. And now the fun part. You've spent on 2 free agents, probably cost you about $45 million for those 2 guys, Bregman and Flaherty, back-to-back. Third move, besides the Javi Baez thing, you have to go and find a young, controllable bat position player that preferably right-handed that is from a team like Milwaukee, like Toronto, that isn't in the big market. They're similar to what the Tigers are, but they're trying to rebuild. The Blue Jays come up. You hear Vlad Guerrero Jr. a lot. You hear other guys like from, say, Cincinnati Reds. Guys from the Seattle Mariners. Now they've been trying to win. A team like the Angels are trying to reduce their payroll.
Mm-hmm.
And the Tigers have 7 guys in the top 100 prospects. So you package a guy at one of those spots, 2 or 3 guys, and you get a controllable player. So you get a starting third baseman, Alex Bregman. You get a starting pitcher, Jack Flaherty. And then you get a young controllable bat. Because you have guys like Meadows, Torkelson, uh, the second baseman, what's the second baseman name? Holt. What's the Tigers' second baseman? The rookie's up has been good. He's good. They have 2 good catchers, Jake Rogers and the Ohio State kid Dingler. They have plenty of outfielders. Kerry Carpenter is a DH corner. Riley Green,
Mm-hmm.
Riley Green and Meadows. Check their record when Meadows plays. They're like 55 and 30 when he plays. Riley Green gets hurt a lot. Winfred Perez is another guy who plays. So then you get those 3 guys and Kerry Carpenter. Torkelson, I like, but after hitting 30 home runs a year ago, he hit like less than 15. So there's a position where you might want to bring in somebody you need like a Ben Zobrist type. They can play multiple positions to offset a couple of these kids. Cole Keith is the second baseman, by the way, for the Tigers, is a good player. So you have to be smart, wisely spend money, and then use your prospect to add another guy. And also, if you're talking about Jackson Jobe, they should try to get him to about 120 innings. So what they should do is they should schedule him. He pitches a week, and then he has a rotation spot apart. So they have to go into the season with 4 starting pitchers and the 5th spot with the swing guy, which they did for the last third of the season here when they got hot, where they had like their relievers all pitch games, because after Screwball they didn't have any starting pitchers. So you have 4 starting pitchers: Screwball, whoever you sign, Montero, and Riley Olson, and then your 5th spot would be Jobe and swing spots. So Jobe pitches, say, game 5, he takes game 10 off. Game 15, he's back. That's how you spread him out.
Right.
You have to. He's the number 1 prospect in baseball. Every one of these pitchers, when they come up, gets hurt. I'm speaking this from the Mets as a Mets fan from 2015. Every one of those kids got hurt, including your guy Zach Wheeler. Now he got hurt before the 15 season. He was hurt in the 2014 season. He got his Tommy John. So, but every one of those guys, Jacob deGrom, Syndergaard, Matt Harvey, Steven Matz, Zach Wheeler, they all got hurt. Every one of these pitchers gets hurt. That's why the Mets moved off of Scherzer and Verlander. They both got hurt. Mariano Rivera blew out his arm in the minor leagues. That's where he learned the cutter. They all get hurt. Kurt Schilling, Randy Johnson, Pedro Martinez, Tom Glavine, Greg Maddux, John Smoltz. They all get hurt.
That he did.
Except Roy Halladay. Roy Halladay is like the only one who never got hurt.
True.
And God bless him, rest in peace for his accident. But he never got hurt. I don't think he ever had a really serious arm injury. And to a lesser extent, Greg Maddux really didn't either. But Greg Maddux doesn't matter because he's thrown 80 his whole life. So I mean, it was like it was different for him. But yeah, it's crazy. I mean, in my going back to the 80s with the Mets, Dwight Gooden got hurt. Ron Darling got hurt. The Generation K guys, Isringhausen, Pulsfer, and Wilson all got hurt.
And I want to stick here for a second as we're talking about American League Baseball. And for those who are just tuning in, thank you for tuning in. It is Beav's World here with Beav, myself, Angel Martinez, on Sports Radio 102.9 FM, The Game on the Coastal Sports Network. Of course, brought to you by Broad Tree South, as the original company that started it all. You guys can download the app at sr1029thegame.com. And you can also just flash up on the screen the QR code, and you guys take a picture there, and also take you a shortcut to be able to take you over to the downloadable app. Now, there's also going to be a condensed show tonight. We'll get back to a full schedule come next week. So just want to alert everyone on there. So we got about 40 and some change left here on the show. But sticking with the American League, and obviously we had the hurricane here back to back, unfortunately, in Florida. And then, of course, they ended up taking off the little paper mache roof that the Tropicana has, which is just ungodly ridiculous. And then people wonder why the Lightning.
Angel, you're funny, but very truthful too.
Yeah, well, that's exactly what it is. It's
I
freaking
know.
paper mache, and then
It's a Mickey
now
Mouse organization, really is.
it is. Listen, they're gonna have to really sell. Listen, Beef, that what they're going to have to do in order to be able to tell future MLB All Stars, listen, I know you guys might not like St. Pete right now. We don't have a roof in our place, but we're gonna have a brand new place for you guys. It's gonna be stellar. It's gonna be beautiful.
Like what Jacksonville just had happen with the Jaguar Stadium. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. The traffic is going to suck because there's only one way in, one way out, unless you want to go through Bradenton. But it's just, it absolutely freaking stinks. That's my biggest problem. But now they're going to have to find a new place to start off because according to the
Do you
Rays,
know what the proposal is, right? You know what the proposal is, right?
so there's
Rays
two.
go to Oakland.
Oh no.
I'm serious. I've heard that all day from different people.
When I see now, what I've heard so far is one, they can share the field down there with Miami. No one sees the Marlins, so it would be equal. No,
That's a
pun
beautiful
intended.
place, by the way. That stadium is awesome where the Marlins play.
Well,
That's a nice place.
it would be. And the only reason why they would have to share is because then the summer storms here, for those who don't know, who've never been down here at all.
Explain the weather, Angel. I'm glad you brought this up. Explain it.
Yep. So here in Florida, what you end up getting like this time of the year, minus the hurricanes, which I just said we got back to back ones, and the end of hurricane season is not until the end of November. Figure that one out. But thankfully, there is a.
And I'm in November, baby. Blame me, Angel. Blame me. Just you can call me the devil. I'm in November 11th, my birthday.
That's all right. Well,
Hurricane Beav is coming now. So,
that could be quite dangerous here for the area, but no, we only get very few cool down months here, which is usually the month of February and March. And April, it ramps back up again. So in the summer months here, you can have anywhere from 15 to 20-minute storms. They come and go quick, and obviously the heat. If you attempt to play baseball, even the local universities here know when not to play outside. But you play down here in the summer heat where the humidity is at 1,000%, screw 100. It's at 1,000% guaranteed from basically April 26th to about November 26th. Guaranteed is just nothing but 1,000% humidity. So the other thing that they were talking about as well was that doing that whole thing where everybody remembers they wanted to call them the X-rays because Montreal wanted to share them down there, half the season in Montreal, the other half the season at Tropicana Field. Now they're thinking about maybe they'll make that, maybe make it work. But again, you're going to lose more. I mean, not that the Rays are getting humongous attendance unless the Yankees come into town, Boston comes into town, Cubs come into town. Other than that, I mean, those are the two choices. And then I also did hear something about somewhere up in Jacksonville as well. But you still got to remember, even though Jacksonville, yes, is here technically in Florida, but they do get the northern weather during the wintertime. So they don't get the same as we do here in the central and the southern portion of Florida. So I don't know how the Rays are going to approach this, what's ever going to make the most amount of sense, but guaranteed Rays fans are not going to travel to Marlins Park. They're just not. Unfortunately, I mean, they barely travel. The fans that live in St. Pete don't go to Tropicana Field. They'd rather go to the bar right around the corner than go to the Trop. It's a shame to say, but they're going to have to find something, and they're going to have to do something quick because even though, yes, it is October, we're mid-October, we have, 15 days left to the end of the month. And then before you know it, it's November, of course, the World Series. If it goes all the way through, it could be the first time we're going into November with the World Series. But then you have basically November, December, January. Oh, by the way, spring training, February. And then the season starts all over again. So now they're going to have to do something. But Tropicana Field, maybe this is just kind of an omen and saying, you know what? Maybe it's just time to start building early. Go ahead and bust it all up. Figure out a home temporarily for them. And then take it from there. Because what are you going to put up there? A tarp? I mean, I don't know what you're going to put up there. It just makes no sense. It's about the same friggin', nonsense that they put up there. Or just take a big old balloon and just stretch it as far as you can and put it up there. But thankfully, no one was hurt inside the building. They said there was only about 15 people there at the time. The linemen, thanks to Governor DeSantis, had moved them to Ocala because he knew kind of, something could happen because of where the eye wall was coming. But again, the Rays, it's like one thing after the other with this team. And I feel bad. It's just, they're the new Angelos of the Warriors. It's probably the best way to explain it.
Yeah. And the Marge Schott.
Yeah.
Marge Schott's another one of the Reds. And I mean, there's a couple. The NFL, there's a lot of them. The Haslam's running the Browns.
Mm-hmm.
And I know it always begins and ends at the top. It's one of the great stories about the Lions is Sheila Ford taking over and just hiring uh, Brad Holmes, the GM, and then he hires Hulk Hogan, the head coach, Dan Campbell, and things just these guys don't fit the mold. How many black GMs are there, and how many guys look like Dan Campbell, their head coach?
Yep.
I mean, Dan Campbell walks in, you think he's a player because he was, but it's a huge part of what is in. And the little lady who used to be a tennis player is the team owner. So it's pretty cool to see it. And you're seeing this more. The Chiefs all have a lot of women in management and ownership, and obviously Darcy Glazer running the Bucks. And a great story that was how they handled the hurricane with the Bucks players. Pete was talking about that earlier yesterday with me. They literally flew all the families out with their pets, and they were really in a good mood and put 51 on the Saints, which is a really good thing because that's a big rivalry for the Bucks. We've seen the Mike Evans fights with them. He's defending Tommy a couple of years ago, and he and Lattimore is like World War III, and it's good to see the Bucks. It's a really good organization. The Glazers don't get enough credit. Darcy's incredible. Jason Light, the general manager. My buddy John Spytek, the assistant GM, Michigan guy, played with Tommy, and then obviously Coach Bowles is just a really good dude, stand-up guy. He's the head coach in the NFL, and he went back to college. I mean, who does that? It's pretty damn cool.
It is.
Really good organization. Good to see. It's not hard to see why certain teams win and why certain teams lose. Everybody saw the Tommy story about how he talked about he was going to talking to the Bears in 20. They offered him $10 million. That's what Tom spends on fish food. I mean, come on, man. I mean, that's seriously $10 million. Really, he's got three kids for God's sakes. $10 million, please.
Yeah. Well, the good thing is now that he's, finally he got the approval from the NFL to be the minority stakeholder for the Raiders. Now he can kind of be a little more open on the broadcast, which it's funny because some people,
yes and no. They
Right.
put restrictions on him. But yeah.
Right. Yeah, but he can just a little more open. Not much, but he can still be a little more open. I find it funny when they're saying, well, you can't talk to the Raiders, about what you saw in the field. Hello, there's things called scouts. There's also a thing called a DVR. If whatever team is playing the Raiders next, all I got to do is DVR it and go back and watch the film that way. So, which I don't think Tom Brady's going to do anything anyways to ruin himself, to be able to do anything with the Raiders. But it's funny because some folks have said that they don't like either his broadcast, and then you have some people that say that they enjoy it. I personally, I've been a fan of his, and I've made this more than the obvious. When he was playing for the Patriots, I pretty much tolerated him when he was with the Bucks because he kind of showed a different side that maybe Patriots fans have seen, but we just never saw. But he didn't mention, as of recent, that he wished that he was more kind of like a little bit of a bigger Mayfield where he just tends to relax and is a little more calm. But to me, I could be wrong, Beav. I don't think he's really bad as a broadcaster. Coming in the first year,
I think he's getting to be really good, and he's getting to be himself. Obviously, I've known him since 1995, so I know what he's really like. And you just kind of said it, how he has to be in public, which what he is in private.
right?
But when he's watching the game, he's more of a fan. Like he was talking about Ben Johnson, the Lions offense coordinator, and the Lions offense, and Aiden Hutchinson's a Brady brand guy. He was a TB12 workout guy, and he breaks his leg. And Tommy's sitting there watching us. He knows this guy and who he is, and it's one of the cooler things. And you saw this with Rowan, Greg Olson, and obviously Phil Simms back in the day, and Boomer Esiason and all different broadcasts. When you have guys playing in games who are your teammates or guys who are your coaches, you get insight on what's going on. And Tommy's learning us. Remember, he's been playing. He hasn't had a chance to prepare and do all this stuff. And it's really interesting to see where he's going. But I think he's getting a lot better. And it's funny, he's done like 4 Cowboys games.
Yeah.
And I don't think he's going to be doing very many more of those. But it's just he's getting better. And always remember, the only place you start on the top is digging a ditch.
Yep.
And he's going to get better. And nobody works harder I'm incredibly proud of him. I mean, not bad for this seven-string quarterback from the 1995 Michigan Wolverines, and he's a NFL owner. I mean, and he's doing all this other stuff. And more importantly, he's my friend, so that's pretty cool.
It is. No, it's very cool. Not too many people can end up saying that, but no, it's really cool. Like I said, I've enjoyed it. Same way, like I mentioned, it. I think Joe Buck has been much tolerable at ESPN. I think maybe the switch of companies it made him more relaxed. He's kind of like more back to himself and able to unwind a little bit more. I just think it's the people and Fox and the way things
Well,
are going. Yeah, go
the
ahead.
thing that's interesting there with Joe Buck, he's with Aikman, right?
Yeah.
Aikman is kind of a dick, but that's his kind of his thing.
Mm-hmm.
He's there. He's not there to be your friend. He
Correct.
tells it like he thinks. He sees it because Troy Aikman, won 3 Super Bowls. He's the level below Tom with all the championships, but he knows what good football is. He's like, if you listen to how Jimmy Johnson is in the studio, that's how Troy is. When things are bad, he's going to say it.
Mm-hmm.
Like, what are they going to do? Fire Troy Aikman? He's going to go home and sit on his couch and, I mean, you don't need to have a tea and garage sale for Troy Aikman if he gets canned from his broadcasting job. He just
No.
doesn't care. And that's kind of what, and people respect that when he says that things are bad. And, when, the Jets have been on TV a lot lately and they're a bad product. So you got to say that. You got to tell the truth. And, Aaron Rodgers, screaming at his wide receiver for not running the right route. Hey, Aaron, how about you show up for OTAs and work on these things with your guys? I mean, they're a good idea. Timing. My buddy went down to Tampa in the middle of the pandemic, was breaking laws to have meetings with his skill guys. So, I mean, that's why one guy has 7 rings and one guy has the same amount as Brad Johnson, Mark Rippon, Jeff Hosteller, and a whole bunch of other greats. I mean, it's beyond stupid.
It is. And then you switch over and somewhat gears to the other brothers, which is the Harbaugh brothers. One's getting ready to take on the Bucks, and the other one's got to apparently wear a heart monitor, at least for the next 2 weeks, if not yet alone the next 2 months, because he came onto the field on Sunday and then came onto the field and then went out of the field because apparently, he had a condition with his heart. So and who knows? Did the Michigan woes get to him? I don't know. But the thing is that, now, of course, I say that in tongue in cheek, but now he's got to wear, he's got to make sure he takes care of his health. And that's any coach. I don't care who you are.
Yeah.
I mean, listen, you might love the game. Don't get me wrong. But at the same time, too, you have to look out for your health. So I think it was a good enough, and it's probably happened before, maybe
Yes,
on
it
a
has.
episode.
Yeah.
So
I think Jim said he had him like 2012 when he was coaching the game, when the
Yeah.
49ers. Yeah. So, I mean, it is what it is. I mean, Jim isn't 23. He's 62. I
Mhm.
believe he's 62. This is a high pressure lifestyle, and he's an adrenaline junkie and all that, like we all are that do this for a living and do anything revolving around sports. We live and die with our teams. I think the NFL lifestyle is easier than the college lifestyle because it's more controlled, and you're not dealing with 130 kids who all think they're John Elway. In the NFL, is more, you control them more than they control you. In college with the NIL and everything now, and guys transferring out, and the whole craziness at UNLV and so many other programs we've seen where guys really manipulate the program. I mean, people don't remember this. The Texas quarterback was at Ohio State, Quinn Ewers, and he basically used them to get money. He knew he was never going to play, and he left. And now he's Texas's quarterback, Quinn Ewers. People don't remember this or know this. He was there before McCord, so this is like 3 quarterbacks ago. So it's a big different world, and hopefully, I'm glad Jim's okay. He obviously won the national championship here and helped turn our program around. Our program was a mess. We were giving away tickets for Coke cans and things like that, and it was just a disaster. And he made a lot of people a lot of money. He made a lot of people happy, and had one of the greatest seasons in the history of college football to close out the 4-team playoff system which we had.
Yeah. Well,
And did so completely clean, Angel. I'm kidding, but yes, yes.
yeah, it is more control in the NFL side, but at the same time too, I mean, to be a head coach, and I know that's what a lot of guys strive for, whether it is, they're
Yeah.
once an athlete and then decide they want to go that route. It's a lot because your
Oh, it
best
is.
coaches, they always tell you they get up either 2:30, 3 o'clock in the morning. They're at work by 4, and then they don't leave until basically the lights are out and they tell them to go home. And half the time you're looking at what 10 o'clock at night, whatever the commute is, to go home.
Yeah.
Then they go home and think about what just happened and then process it and then start all over again. And then you only have there's very few coaches during the off season that they may take more than 2 weeks off. Like that first week, possibly just to kind of unwind, spend time with the family, vacation, whatever, the case may be.
June
But
and July, you have time. Yeah.
yeah, it's just it's a lot. It's a lot to endure, and I hope he takes it very serious because again, that's the Chargers hired him for a reason. He wanted to come back to the NFL for a reason because he's looking to win that elusive ring, being a Super Bowl champion. But at the same time, too, your health is priority over anything. So I just hope he takes that really serious. Now, switching gears as we go over to the ice, as last night, the Tampa Bay Lightning, number one is thanks to not only once again to Governor DeSantis, but how about Jeff Finnick decides to invite the gentleman that came from Alberta, Canada, to the game last night. The lineman, good food,
Yep.
great beer, great atmosphere, and they went out there. Team didn't play so well, but it's okay because the Lightning looked as best as they possibly did within the last 2 seasons. But Lightning go on to win the game 4-1. For those who are looking for the Wendy's burger, hopefully they got it today because you can go over there and get the burger for free as long as you buy a fry or Coke or something else like that. But it was good representation by the Tampa Bay Lightning, given the fact what was happening here within the last 2 weeks. Not only was they had 2 preseason games that were moved, both because of the hurricanes, and then obviously the home opener also had to be moved because of the hurricane as well. And I know for some people, we all love sports. Don't get me wrong. There's people obviously who don't like it. They like music. They prefer that over sports, or they use that as their outlet. But at the same time too, Tampa had to do everything within their power to make sure that if you're going to give the fans a good experience, to make sure that everything was safe in Tampa, so they were able to play the game. So they played last night. They win 4-1. I really enjoyed the game last night. I think both defensively, offensively, what Tampa did last night, minus some penalties that were just kind of dumb. I mean, it's unfortunate. But the way they looked last night, this team looked better than what they did towards the end of last season. Now, again, we're only
A lot of changes. No Stamkos.
Yeah, which is going to be, well, that's my thing. So when he comes, obviously, with the Predators, it's going to be, it'll be a nice homecoming, don't get me wrong. But at the same time, too, I'm just, right now, Nashville's starting out 0-2. I don't know. I think they lost last time. I'm not too certain, but they're starting out. I know they start out the season 0-2 again, but it's early on. And by the way, Utah, why couldn't Utah be, if this drives me a little bit nuts? How in the world did everybody had, like, they told them to put your name in the hat and then come up with a name for the team. You mean to tell me you couldn't go with like Utah Ice? That you just decided you know what? For the first season, we're going to be called the Utah Hockey Club. I mean,
well, one of the funnier things is, if you know this, Utah has been a minor league hotbed. They've had teams there.
right.
So I think the Islanders had their minor league team there for years. So, yeah, I mean, come up with a name. But it is what it is. They actually have some good players because the Coyotes had so many draft picks, Clayton Keller and guys like that. But, it's interesting to see. But no, it's a little weird. But they have a really good, I mentioned ownership earlier, really cutting edge owner, and, just get that team out of Arizona, which was a mess with the stadium and so forth. I had so many friends who played for the Coyotes. They were there and they've had good teams, and the ownership situation was just a mess. And, it's a lot like the Tampa Rays. If you don't have a good ownership situation, message Mr. Vinnick. The Lightning owner is incredible. He's a Boston guy. And just a really good ownership group, brought in Steve Yzerman and Coach Cooper, and just gets out of the way and lets them run it. And it's a really good organization. And it's always, my Mets, the Wilpons, regardless of what most of you think, were pretty good owners. But Steve Cohen is like up here. I mean, look at who's throwing out the first pitch tonight for us: Darryl Strawberry and Dwight Gooden. And tomorrow is going to be Robin Ventura and Edgar Alfonso. And then on Friday, it's going to be Jonas Cespedes, and Matt Harvey. So the last three NL championship teams from the Mets. They're having 2 stars from each team, and Mr. Cohen he's there. He's out greeting the fans before the game. He's spending money. Just a high class organization. And listen, our division demands it because the Phillies are going to spend. You don't hire Dave Dombrowski and not compete. The Braves are the Braves. Their stadium and their fans suck, but they got a good team. The Marlins, and you can quote me on that, by the way. The Marlins, they are what they are. And the Nationals, they're coming off the Strasburg, Bryce Harper teams. They finally did win after Bryce left, but they had, they're kind of a development and build team. Mike Rizzo is a very good GM. So our division is very good. It's very tough and competitive.
Yeah,
And
well,
that's, you need a big time owner to be involved and win.
it's true with your owner. Listen, my hat's off to him because he did after
He's
you
awesome.
move on to the
Awesome.
series. He goes outside and stands with the fans and take pictures.
Yeah.
And all. That's
Well, not only that, he greets them when they're coming in. I mean, he goes and says he went to the seventh line event at the home game. They tweeted to him. The seventh line of the guys that sit in center field on all of our road trips. You see them all together, all wearing uniforms. The seventh line is the 7 train that goes to Citi Field. So they tweeted him, "Hey, maybe it'd be nice if Steve Cohen showed up." And guess what? He showed up with one security guy. Steve Cohen and one security guy. So I mean, it was crazy.
That's the way you do it. And by the way, I'm going to kind of flip it back to Arizona as we were talking about as far as hockey and all. But when it comes back to the Diamondbacks, listen, some things again just make absolutely no sense. But
that's a good organization, by the way. The Diamondbacks are.
Yeah, well, I did see this article. Why do people want to persist upon this stuff? But now they're trying to say that the Diamondbacks should be thinking about moving because of global warming. I'm like, really? You guys couldn't think
They're
about
in the friggin' desert.
Right. Exactly. So it's gonna.
What do they think there? Sam Kinison, go where the food is. It's the desert. It's the desert. It's Arizona.
Right.
Where do you think the forests are? It's the desert.
Yeah, but
you have the Phoenix Suns and the Arizona Cardinals. I mean, come on, man. Seriously, do these people have lives?
No, none.
Why?
It's so dumb. I couldn't even believe the article came out. I'm like, are you? And first thing this morning, I'm
By the way, so hold on, Angel. Another part of this, I want you people to understand this.
Mm-hmm.
Angel, let's help these people out. Let's pretend that our listeners have come interfere from Mars and they don't understand baseball. Where are the 2 places Major League Baseball's 32 teams go to spring training? Go, Angel. The 2 places.
Florida, Arizona.
Oh, really? What do those 2 things have in common?
Heat. Tons of it.
Wow. I have 2 college degrees. And by the way, I knew that when I was 12 years old. But hey, so, I mean, seriously. I mean, these people need to go out and see the sun.
They do. But it's
really?
The Diamondbacks, they came off, a World Series run from year before. This year, they kind of wrote.
Well, they got screwed because of what the Braves did.
Correct. So, but
the Braves were able to pitch Spencer Schweiler twice. Because they manipulated the storm. They wouldn't have been able to do that, and they made the playoffs because of that.
I wonder once the season's over, will someone actually come out and say so? I mean, I doubt it because they're not going to.
What I just said?
Mm-hmm.
Everybody, there's people who know this. They've all said Mad Dog every day on High Heat. He's screaming about it. Mad Dog is me, but older. I mean, he just screaming and hollering about this. I mean, it was. They manipulated the Hurricane to pitch a guy twice against the Mets. Go look at it. It's because in the second part, and you and I talked about this when Sale was hurt. That's why they did it.
Yeah. Yep.
And by the way, when are the Braves playing?
Golf, maybe a little crochet. I don't know, a little something.
They'll be playing again in March. I'm playing tonight in about an hour.
Yeah.
And by the way, everything I just said is factual. If you don't believe me, sue me. But everything we just said is 100% true. They Spencer Schleilenbach, whatever the hell his name is, from Nebraska, and he's a Michigan kid, owns the Mets. They knew the weather was coming. They pitched him. They beat us. We had to go to Milwaukee to play. The 2 games got rained out. We won the games we needed to win. We came back. They had to play the doubleheader. They started him in the first game. We came back and beat their bullpen and won the game. And then the Braves had to win the next game. We rested our guys because we didn't care, and they won. And the Diamondbacks had to sit and watch this nonsense.
Yep. Yep, they did.
And then, by the way, Chris Sale's hurt. He can't pitch.
Right. And they're going to scratch him. I wonder how long, if all, for all intents and purposes, if the Braves would have gotten to the division series, how long would keep doing the same exact thing until they finally got to where we're one game away from
Well,
winning it. Now we'll bring
okay,
him in.
what about like Max Fried and some of the? I mean, I didn't see what was going on Max Fried and some of the other pitchers, but I mean, no. And again, that's why what the Mets did was smart. They used Senga and Tyler Maygill and some of the other guys, and they just did it again. And David Peterson, because they have three good starting pitchers,
Mm-hmm.
and they set things up. And then we did it. We legally manipulated things. The Braves use a natural disaster, the Tempe Rays Stadium being destroyed and people like you being displaced to cheat and manipulate and use the rules. And now, by the way, this isn't about the Braves. This is about Rob Manfred and those morons in suits who sit and run in MLB who just sit there with their heads up their ass because they're beholden to the Yankees. And anything bad that happens to the Mets is good for the Yankees. Again, by the way, the bigger part of this is about Steve Cohen, who spends money, which again, they don't want. Because when Dave Dombrowski's bad for baseball, Steve Cohen's bad for baseball.
Right.
The old Steinbrenner was bad for baseball. He created free agency with Catfish Hunter and all those other guys he signed. So it's bad. So taking out the Mets and Steve Cohen is good for baseball. But a funny thing happened. Francisco Lindor, Pete Alonso, Brandon Nimmo, Edwin Diaz, and a whole bunch of other guys, Mark Vientos, said, you know what, F these clowns. We're a good baseball team, and we're going to send the Braves where they belong, on their asses home. And then we're going to take out the Phillies, and we're now playing the Dodgers. So cream always rises to the top, baby. To the top, baby. There you go.
It does. It does. We'll see if they can take. I'm pretty sure they'll take care of the Dodgers. By the way, going back.
Don't say that because they have probably the greatest three players together that I can remember. And I'm going to be 53 in a couple months. Now, the 86 Mets had Keith Hernandez, Gary Carter, and Darryl Strawberry, 3, 4, and 5. These guys don't usually do the 3, 4, and 5, but they have Mookie Betts, who's the best outfielder in the game.
Right.
He's better than Aaron Judge. If you don't believe that, you're smoking drugs. Freddie Freeman's the best first baseman in the game. And Ohtani is the best two-way player DH in the game. Those three guys together, and they got Will Smith and Teoscar Hernandez and other guys. They have a lot of good players. I mean, you're looking at like Joe Morgan, Johnny Bench, Pete Rose, Edgar Martinez, Ken Griffey Jr., A-Rod, any of the Yankees variations. There's no obvious one because you had the Bernie, Jeter, Posada teams. They never had anything as good as those three guys. The Red Sox in the 70s with Yaz, Fred Lynn, Jim Rice, Carlton Fisk. That's close. But I mentioned Edgar Martinez is the best DH in the game. Griffey Jr., best center fielder. And A-Rod was the best shortstop. So those three guys together. So that's probably the comp. But there's Barry Bonds with Jeff Kent, but there was no third guy. I mean, Barry Bonds is so good, he probably counts for two. So, I mean, that's the best hitter I've ever seen. Maybe the Cardinals would Pujols as teams when they had like Matt Holliday. And maybe did they have Matt Holliday, Larry Walker, and Pujols together at once? If they did, that's a good comp. But I mean, it's nuts when you think of. In the Braves, I'd have to think, Chipper Jones, Justice, and maybe like Ryan Klesko or whatever. But there's whoever else they had. But it's pretty nuts when you think about it.
It is. Very
I watch a little baseball if you haven't noticed, Angel. I watch a little bit of baseball.
That's all right. Well, it's the same way. For me, it's different. I will say this much before I do the hockey rundown for tonight before we close out the show here. It's funny because when I lived in Philly, it was I guess because of the environment. Once the Phillies,
I'm trying to think who's the best two guys Mike Schmidt played with.
Let's see. Well, other than what you got,
Greg Lazinski.
Okay.
Did he play with Dick Allen, Lazinski, and Schmidt together? Or let's see, who else was there with Mike Schmidt?
Well, you also had Bob Boone. Yeah, Larry Boa.
Well,
Those
Bob
years as
Boone
well.
wasn't. Well, Bob Boone and Larry Bow were like defensive guys. They weren't big hitters. Wrigley,
Uh,
Greg Lazinski,
yeah.
Bake McBride,
Big Bride. Yep.
Pete Rose, but he was, a leadoff guy.
Yeah.
Um, they had a million second basemen. Uh, no, they had Bake McBride, Greg Lazinski. Well, I'm trying to think of the World Series team that won. Was Schmidt, Lazinski. Um, wow, who else is on that? I'm trying to remember.
Crap.
Bob Boone and Barry Boa.
Yeah.
The second baseman was Minnie Trio, I
Yep.
think.
Manning Trio was second base.
Uh, and Vic McBride, Lazinski, and who was Del Unser the other outfielder? I think he was.
Yep.
I'm doing this off the top of my head, by the way. And Steve Carlton was pretty good. No, they never had. But I'll tell you what, the Pirates in '79 with Dave Parker and Willie Stargell, and whoever the other guy was, probably Phil Garner. They probably had one other really good hitter on that team. Hank Aaron had some teams with him and Eddie Matthews on the Braves. But no, it's well. I get another one for you. Mattingly, Dave Winfield, and Ricky Henderson. That's probably that when Mattingly was the best player in the American League. Ricky Henderson, Dave Winfield, and Don Mattingly. Don Mattingly doesn't
Trio.
get talked about enough. Don Mattingly and Wade Boggs do not get talked about enough. I grew up watching both those guys play in the minors and then in the major leagues. And guy who brought me to Michigan, Cam Cameron, was arch rivals with Don Mattingly growing up in Indiana. And Cam was a great basketball and football player, and Don's third sport was baseball, and he was pretty good in baseball. But they clash and everything against each other, and I man crush on Don Mattingly. I just love him, even though Keith Hernandez is a better player. But I said that with a straight face, by the way. But I love Keith, but he's not a better player than Don Mattingly. But it was amazing that those two guys were in the same city at the same time, and they were carbon copies of each other. Great clutch players, hitters, fielders, leaders. It was freaking awesome, just incredible to see. And Ricky Henderson is probably the best player that people don't talk about enough.
Yeah.
He was might be the best left fielder of all time when you look at his contribution to the games. I mean, you're looking at Yaz, Ted Williams, Barry Bonds, Ricky Henderson's right up there with those guys. I mean, those four guys, that's a pretty good group of guys. Those four guys I just named.
It is. No, you're right. It is. I mean, Ricky Henderson.
Yaz, Barry Bonds, Ted Williams. No, Yaz was the
Wait.
only guy forever, the American League guy with I think 3,000 hits, 400 home runs. He was the first American League guy I think to do that, if I remember correctly. I have to look that up.
But you got to
Like
take
in
away
1979, as she did it. Yeah, against he got his 3,000th hit, I think, off Mike Morgan. Or no, he got his 400th home run off Mike Morgan. I have to look that up. He either got his 3,000th hit or his 400th home run off of Mike Morgan, and then his other one he got off the Yankees, and I think Jim Beattie.
Yeah, but
I'm sorry, Yaz was my favorite player when I was a little kid. All right.
Yeah, but you got to take Barry Bonds out of the equation though, because
That's why I played left field. By the way, what about Barry Bonds?
You got to take him out of the equation.
Why?
How do you go from being, I don't know, 105 pounds to all of a sudden being jacked up, juiced up when you went to San Fran?
Hey, good. You know what? Then listen, I agree with you. But say the same thing about Roger Clemens and some of these other guys. Roger Clemens' career was over, and the Red Sox let him go. And then he went Mr. Needle, and he became a whole new guy. You don't know who was on steroids. I don't think I'm going to go on a limb and don't think Greg Maddux was on steroids, or Jim Thome, or Chipper Jones, or Todd Helton, or Ken Griffey Jr. is an obvious one because he got hurt and he was never good again. So that type of thing. But yeah, I mean, no kidding, Barry Bonds went on roids, but everybody was doing roids. You have no idea how many pitchers are doing roids. I mean, Eric Gagne and guys like that.
Mm-hmm.
So it's just, it is what it is. But again, Barry was a Hall of Fame player before he went on roids, and then he got into it because of Mark McGwire and Sammy Sosa. He was jealous because he's Barry Bonds of those guys and their success, and he saw the money and notoriety they were getting, and and then all of a sudden his head grew a whole size.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
I feel bad for people like Jim Leland who
Yep.
had to cover for that
Yep.
and talk about that.
Mm-mm. He
And
was.
people aren't stupid. That's why I have great respect for people like Jason Jambi who don't bullshit. They just tell you,
They do.
because it basically killed his brother, basically, because he got a parasite from it, and just other stuff. But yeah, I mean, it is what it is.
Well,
Ken Caminiti's another one, obviously.
yeah. By the way, speaking about Todd Helton, who else? God, he was probably the last best Rocky, I want to say, that came from they represented Colorado. Because
You know the trivia question he's an answer to?
what's that?
He was the quarterback at Tennessee before Peyton Manning.
Really?
Look that up.
Wow.
Yep.
Interesting. So you learn
Yep.
something new every day. Wow. But now,
So I saw Todd Helton play in the Cape Cod League, and I said, this guy is going to be incredible in MLB. Didn't he just make the Hall of Fame? And he's just an incredible player. I like the old school guys like Jim Thome, Chipper Jones, the ultimate old school guys, Cal Ripken Jr., who was one of my heroes when I was a kid. And I probably went and saw him 10 years in a row at Fenway Park and went and talked to him as a little kid. And he would stand and talk to everybody. Everybody knows this about Cal Ripken. He would talk to everybody. And I would stand and talk to Cal Ripken. He started to remember who I was, which was pretty damn funny. And but I love the old school baseball guys who, John Kruk, the bad body guys who are just good at baseball. Don't look like an athlete, but they're great at baseball.
yeah, it's
Those
funny.
type of guys. Those type of guys.
The even though a lot of people loved Cal Ripken Jr., but there was a lot of people too that couldn't stand him because they pretty much categorized him as the world's biggest ass. Now, I know he did a lot for the Orioles. I get
Yep.
it. He brought the AAA team out there to
Aberdeen.
north of Baltimore. So
Yep.
it's just some guys, man. It's a shame. Like you look up to, like when you as a kid, you know this as much as I do. When we grew up with baseball, you didn't care. You never knew. Our time was completely different because we never heard if the guys that we idolized the most, we
Yeah.
never heard anything bad. Why? Because it
Yeah.
wasn't the way it is today with social media. And when Cal Ripken was coming out towards the end of his career, it was more and more stories that came, out
Sure.
and more that surfaced. And then once he decided to bring out that team, the AAA team, it just all of a sudden it imploded for him. And then now you don't hear anything whatsoever about Cal Ripken. Matter of fact, he used to be invited to TBS when they did TBS baseball, and now he doesn't do that any longer either. So it's a shame, but some of these guys just you idolize some of these guys, and it's like, really, that's what you guys really were. It's just, to me, it's a shame. But now kids don't even have to worry about that anymore because they got other things to freaking worry about other than idolizing somebody. It's just it's just such a change in society. It
No,
makes me
it's
nuts.
funny you bring this up. How I became a Mets fan is I had a bad experience with a Red Sox star player. So I was, we'll tell that story another time. It's out there. Guy who's in the Hall of Fame too. So when I became a Mets fan, a big part of why I became a Mets fan, and like 2 or 3 years later, I was at a Mets game, and Keith Hernandez and Wally Backman were nice to me, and that's how I became a Mets fan, a big time Mets fan. And that's one of the things. When every once in a while, there's some poor people who come to meet me, and I'm always nice to the kids and the fans. And I'm very, and Tommy was always good with kids and fans. It's hard. We all have lives, and it's demanding and everything. But
Mhm.
they're paying the bills, and you're having a bad day. There's people who are having a worse day, and you go out there and just try to be courteous and do the best you can. I go and visited sick kids in the hospital and things like that for Tommy and other people, and it's there's not the end of the world that your show sucked or you had a bad day at the office or somebody hit a home run off the wrong team.
Yep,
Um, it's kind of what life is.
sure is.
Look at what you just had to deal with, you and Pete with the hurricane and all your family and friends down there. So, and now you're doing better and things are going okay. So there you go.
Yep. No, you gotta once it's like everything else. Life throws you a curveball, and then you gotta figure out how to get around it. You know, either got to pitch around it or you're going to bat it out. And one of the two. I mean, we have back to back
I
weeks.
follow it off. I follow it off, Angel. That's how I follow it.
Well, we tried to do that with Milton, but apparently he had he knew he wanted to go for a home run for sure. It sucked for a little bit, but thankfully we will rebuild as we are resilient here in Florida. And for the folks that have been here all their lives, I mean, listen, God bless them because a lot of them never leave just because they're like, oh, I'll ride this one out just like other ones. But unfortunately, you know, there will come a point in time where the luck will run out. Like if we got out because we just didn't want to be a part of it. What we saw has never been seen before, yet alone all the tornadoes that spun off of that thing. I just, it was time to run. So we're good there. But I will leave this with everyone as we close out the show here. Again, it was a condensed show tonight, but don't forget Friday, as Beav will join me again on Friday morning at 11 o'clock. And I'm pretty sure at that point, we'll be talking about whether Mets win, whether Mets lose, what we're looking at. Could it be a closeout game on Friday? No one knows. We will all find out come Friday. But nonetheless, thank you all for tuning in once again here to the show. Don't forget, you can always leave comments behind on the social medias. Let us know exactly how you guys like the network. You can also visit sr1029thegame.com. Download the app while you're there. And by the way, browse around, take a look. See what you guys have up there. USF football, Tampa Bay Sun Football Club is up there. So just browse around all the different shows and everything else. Beav's show will be up there as I still get things caught up and do different things as we came back after the not break that we wanted, but coming back, I have to make sure I load everything back up there. But once again, thank you all for tuning in tonight. We do appreciate it. Beav, thank you, sir. I do appreciate it.
Hey, appreciate being back, Angel. I'm glad you and Peter are okay. We were checking in on each other, staying on, making sure everything's good, and I'm glad you're doing okay. Love you, buddy.
Love you too, man. I appreciate it. And everybody else, have yourselves a great night. We will see you in the AM. That one off. Yes. And just like that.